Muted.
So logging into the system, you guys should all be familiar with our home screen. And really the goal of my call today is take you through some of our comparative reports. So specifically today, I plan on focusing on the compare scan. A lot of our clients are using the compare scan report during sales meetings to contrast the difference between the client's current portfolio and a model that they might be recommending for the client. So to get started with the compare scan, what I'm going to do is I've already created a prospect account and a sample model. And again, both of these just for examples. So I'm going to click into my prospect account. I've already allocated to this illustration, designated it as a portfolio of investments. I've made sure this has a nice and long time horizon on it. I can go straight to the Reports tab, check Parameters next to Compare Scan. I'm going to select which account I want to compare the prospect account against by clicking on Select from List. Here I'll see all of my model names as well as portfolios populate. Here I've set up the sample model as another illustration. I simply check the box next to sample model, click OK here. I've checked this box to display name, and I've already titled the prospect's current account as current, and the model I'm proposing as proposed. Here, I'm going to choose not to show any benchmark performance information. If I wanted to, I could do all of that by selecting the benchmark here and checking these boxes to display the benchmark for each illustration. I also have the ability to select how I want to display the output. For this report, maybe I'll go ahead and select subcategory as a display option for the pie chart grouping. I simply click Save here, click on Build Report. And as I'm sure you all know, our reports are all web-based and should come up fairly quickly. My compare scan is built, and I'm ready to review it here. Looking at the top of my compare scan report, I have the prospect's current account broken out by subcategory allocation, as well as my sample model broken out by subcategory allocation. The macro allocation section shows me that I'm currently sitting in an equity-heavy portfolio with a little bit of fixed income, and really the composition of this portfolio and the proposed model is not changing too much. We're trimming a little bit of equities, going a little bit more into fixed income and cash. Below this, the trailing performance section of this report shows me how these two accounts have performed historically over time. The current model here with dark blue and proposed in gold. Directly below trailing performance, I actually have my trailing returns on both the current and proposed models, showing me how these models have returned historically. Here, obviously, I can see the current models lost me money over the past year, whereas what I'm proposing for this client is actually positive. Over any historic period, we notice that the proposed model has also generated a lot more returns. And going back to the common inception on both portfolios, we notice that the annualized return is well over triple in the proposed model to what the client's sitting in currently. Best and worst case analysis on both portfolios. Here, really a real neat way to show the upside capture as well as potential downside swings on this portfolio versus the current versus proposed on a trailing 3-month, 1-year, and 3-year period. So here the best period that my current portfolio had on any 3-month period was about 34%, 1 year about 57%, and on the 3-year run about 97%. My proposed model, best 3-month run was over 40%, over 93% on 1 year, and close to 300% on the 3-year mark here. Worst case also shows me the drawdown over those periods, showing me that maybe where the client's sitting right now is a little bit more defensive. But if we look at the upside capture, this might make sense for the client given they're risk tolerance and age and all those kinds of things. Next page of this report is going to be the risk versus return graph, showing me the risk versus the return visually for the client's current portfolio, as well as what I'm proposing. To the right of this graph, we have some MPT stats on the current versus proposed model. Here we're going to give you annualized return, standard deviation, as well as Sharpe ratio, alpha, beta, and or squared. All those kind of comparative measures to see how these portfolios stack up. So obviously looking at the inception Sharpe ratio as well as alpha on both of these portfolios, currently the client not doing too well. What I'm recommending, a lot more solid. Next on this report, equity properties, giving me a breakdown of the equity properties in the current versus proposed, as well as fixed income properties, metrics, country and sector exposure. And lastly on this report, we're going to get an overlap report, showing us a lot of securities in this client's account are actually cross-held. So the current illustration I put together for the client's prospect account held some American funds, which obviously cross-hold quite a few securities here. So the overlap report giving us an opportunity to really show client's actual exposure to all positions. So, maybe the client holds Baidu as an individual security. Well, it's also in 4 of your mutual funds. So you might have more exposure to this position than you envisioned. Just kind of a neat way to show that. And lastly, we'll also have overlap on the recommended portfolio. Here, obviously, I have Apple held as an individual security, and it's in 2 of the funds. But other than that, not too much overlap. So again, this compare scan report is a great sales tool to really highlight the differences in the 2 portfolios. Next report I want to show you, similar concept, but here, rather than the sales meeting, a lot of our clients are using the allocation analysis report during the implementation meeting to really show the client, again, why we're entering the portfolio or why we're maybe changing the portfolios here, and gives us a lot of substantive information on the 2 portfolios. And also allocation analysis is going to do something kind of neat. It's going to create a little trade ticket for us, which tells us exactly what needs to be bought and sold in the account to get from portfolio A to portfolio B. So for this allocation analysis, I'm going to go ahead and use that same account. We're currently in the prospect account. Let's just pretend maybe the prospect signed off on the model we've recommended, that sample model. And during the implementation meeting, we want to show them how we're going to get from where they are now to the model that we've recommended for the client. So similar to the compare scan, here I'm going to select the model that I want to gear up for comparison here. I'm going to select my sample model. Again, the box for display name is checked. I'm going to go ahead and title these. The prospect account, I'm going to title current. And my proposed model, I'm going to go ahead and title proposed. Here you can really customize this report to a great degree. To keep things simple, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to display the allocations on the category and table level, all 4 of them, just to kind of show you what this looks like. And I'm going to use the display side by side. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go ahead and build this allocation analysis report. And fairly quickly, I'm going to have report output that I can use during an implementation meeting to really take the client through what we're recommending and walk them. So currently where they're sitting is pretty much an all equity portfolio, the return and standard deviation listed below. What I'm recommending is a more balanced model, some equities as well as fixed income. Again, the return and standard deviation parameters listed directly below. Page 2 of this report is going to show me the same thing on a subcategory allocation. Again, remember that I checked all 4 levels. If you wanted to, you could remove certain levels here. But just to give you an idea of what this looks like, here on the subcategory allocation, showing me where we are versus where we're headed. Return and standard deviation listed below. And here on a class allocation, pretty much the same report, just showing me where these components line up on a class level. And lastly, the actual positions that I'm in now versus the positions that I'll be buying into. followed by really what is basically a trade ticket here showing me what needs to be bought and sold in order to implement this portfolio. Now, along with that output, I'm also going to get all of my trailing returns on the prospect account as well as my sample model. I'm going to have benchmark information for both. I'm going to have my annualized returns, my best and worst case analysis information, risk versus return, some MPT stats, as well as macro allocation, country allocation, sector allocation, all to really back up why we're recommending this model and why this makes sense for the client. Along with that, I'm also going to have my overlap report here in allocation analysis. As well as disclosures at the very bottom. So really, my goal today was to take you through our compare scan report, as well as our allocation analysis report, highlight why advisors are using this, and show you some samples on these reports. What I'd like to do now is just kind of open this up for questions. Again, any questions you have, please type into the question dialog box. And if it's anything that might be very specific to your firm use, please go ahead and email me or give me a call, and we can take that up. So the first question I see is, how do you change the color scheme for graphs? That's a great question. Obviously, I loaded up some random colors here. Let me go back to our system. You should be able to adjust all of your information under My Info, including report branding, which is right here. So you click on My Info, you simply click on Edit Report Branding, and you'll notice here you have the ability to adjust the colors for all of your headers, backgrounds, charts, as well as bar charts. I see another question coming across about model portfolios. I'll go ahead and take that up with you, Mike, offline. I have actually gone through models on a different training call. That wouldn't be the purpose of this call here. Certainly something we can work on individually, or something I can send you a link for, as I've already done a training on that. But that's certainly something I could address with you on a one-off basis, Mike. Okay, I see another question coming across that might be a little bit more specific for firm use. Absolutely, Caesar. Give me a call after this call is wrapped up. We can set something up to review that. Again, my number here is 800-480-3888. I'm at extension 105. You should all have my email address. Any questions on system use, system help, or any specifics, please always feel free to email support@AdvisoryWorld. That's SUPPORT @AdvisoryWorld. Give our general phone number, or give our general support line a call as well. That's 800-480-3888, option 2. So I am at the end of my 15 minutes here, and I don't see too many other questions coming across. I'll go ahead and hang out on the line here. If you have any other questions, please feel free to type them into the chat box, reach out to me via email, or give me a phone call. But with that, I don't want to take up any more of your time. Thank you so much for attending today. And again, if you have any questions that I didn't address today on the call, please reach out to me, and I'll be happy to help you with those. Thank you very much for attending our training session today. I look forward to seeing you on all future training session calls.